Welcome to DroneCast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, a podcast by DroneSense. We explore real-world applications of drones in emergency response, offering a close examination of evolving trends in drone technology and its impact on public safety. I'm your host, Joe Kearns, Strategic Partnership Manager here at DroneSense. And hey, as you're listening, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe there's a story or a challenge from your own experience that resonates, or is there a topic you'd like me to cover in future episodes? I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us on LinkedIn by searching for DroneCast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, or visit dronesense.com/dronecast to share your thoughts. Your feedback helps shape the show, and you might just inspire our next episode. Now, let's dive into today's conversation on advancing public safety through drones. Welcome to DroneCast. I'm your host, Joe Kearns. In part one of our conversation with Jack Wu, co-founder and CEO of Nightingale Security, we dove deep into the philosophy behind purpose-built drone solutions. Jack shares his insights of his 17 years of experience in product development and design, discussing how Nightingale's approach to autonomous drone systems prioritizes reliability and simplicity in urban environments. He has a strong background in application design and development within consumer internet sector. His career includes advisory roles with companies such as Eventbrite, Ginny, Glam Media, SpaceX, and Yammer. Under his leadership, Nightingale Security has developed autonomous drone solutions that integrate with existing security infrastructure, serving clients across various industries, including critical infrastructure, oil and gas, utility, military installation, and data sensors. Wu's work focuses on enhancing perimeter patrol and rapid response capabilities through innovative drone technology. Join us as we explore the challenges and innovations in drone-in-the-box technology. Welcome, Jack. Great to speak with you today.
Appreciate it, man.
Well, good stuff. Let's dive into some opening questions right here. So, could you share how your journey in the drone industry began and then fast forward to now? And I know that's a little complicated because I think it wasn't initially drone, right? Or UAVs.
My career started with consumer internet, mostly on the ad serving side, and then went on to the gaming side. But one thing for sure is I saw the technology progressing, where there's more automation using software, whether it's ad targeting or in-game. Back then, we didn't call it AI; it was just algorithms providing the tailored feedback to a player. So, like a player will be able to be challenged based on their skill level and so on. So a lot of this has to do with making like a machine think a little bit. And then my personal fascination with aviation has always been on the back of my head. I always wanted to do something when the time is right. And 10 years ago, I thought that drone was going to be flying all over the place in a few years. I was wrong about that. It took a lot longer.
I mean, we're still waiting for flying cars, right?
Well, it was mostly regulatory. I'm sure we'll get to that in a little bit. The technology was ready probably like 4 years ago, and now the regulations is ready. But automation has really been the goal of this company. We are a robotics company. Our product is the Blackbird. It is a robotic aerial security system. It is designed specifically for tactical ISR to be stationed at a location and be responsible for patrol, rapid response, or in case of DFR, be the first responder to any incident within that coverage area, period. We don't do all this other stuff that, I think some drone companies like to do. Oh, we're going to do survey, we're going to do this, we're going to do inspection. I think the airframe that's going to require to be able to perform all those functions, and we can touch on that a little more later, leads to some important compromises that we're just unwilling to make. And our product philosophy is based on the A-10 Warthog. Simplicity is reliability and single purpose, but do it very, very well. And people will hopefully appreciate it.
I'm picking up a theme too. Like you've got the Blackbird, you say the Warthog, and even the bird itself even has kind of that original stealth like framework to it, right?
Yeah, the F-117. Yeah. It was, the design itself was more of it came out of necessity. We actually was going to put a lid on there, but we didn't know what shape. And the easiest thing to do was to take this shape and then stretch it upwards and then slope it. And that's how we got the cover.
And it all just kind of came together.
Yeah. We don't really give it that much thought, honestly. Can't take credit for that. But ultimately, form is based on function. So the entire airframe is designed to be maintainable, field serviceable, and upgradable. So you won't see a lot of changes on the external part of our airframe. Like the 911, we don't believe that changing for change's sake. We're not trying to revolutionize the airframe every couple of years. What we want to do is we want to take what works, enhance it, refine it. So keep polishing it. Because what that's going to do is, again, for a single purpose airframe, that works. If you're trying to do multi-purpose, then you might need to refresh it every couple of years. But for us, the outside is going to be kept as is for a while. But the inside, because we have a sandwich construction, all the components are actually pretty modular. So we can take one out, put another one in. So on the outside, you might not see any difference, but the internal components have already been upgraded 3 or 4 times over the period of 2 years. So, faster processors, better power management, better ESC to, limit the amount of EMI, improved modem for, better network connections. Network is always a challenge. So all those things will happen, kind of like a 911 when they get a better engine, but you don't necessarily get a new shell because there's no need. The aerodynamics works just fine.
I think that's the perfect way to talk about it is the 911. I think that's brilliant because, right, don't mess with that. It's perfect. Any change, even enthusiasts of that vehicle, when there's a small change, it's a big deal to a lot of people. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, because it's dialed in, right? It's race proven. For us, we have to go out to customer location and eat a lot of dog food. And we're not trying to do everything, right? So our camera is mounted underneath our drone, forward mounted underneath the drone, because we're not going to ever look up to do a bridge inspection. Not our thing. But the advantage of being underneath the drone is that when it rains, when it hails, when it snows, I don't have to worry about that one speck of moisture that gets on the lens. You do that with a camera that's forward mounted outward by itself. When it rains, what's going to happen? 100%, you're going to get a raindrop on that lens. When you got a raindrop on that lens, what are you going to do? It's not like you got a little windshield wiper on the drone. Because if you have to have a multi-purpose airframe, you have to look up, right? And you got to fly really close. We don't need any of that. We simply focus on fighting strong wind, fly in winds 45 miles per hour, persistent in 50, 55 miles per hour gusts. That's what we do. Fly in snow, fly in light hail. That's what's important for DFR. It's what's important for security because we don't know when incidents are going to occur. So we focus our efforts on things like that rather than try to make it multi-mission.
What led you to focus on these drone-in-the-box solution and DFR technology within this?
Yeah, so we started focusing on just drone in the box 10 years ago. We have one product. That's all we're going to have in the near future because, drone in the box by itself is quite challenging. Unlike hand flying drones, every time when you recover a drone, when you're hand flying, you get an opportunity to take the battery off, swap the battery. By doing so, very often you reboot the drone. If you ever have let your computer run, if you don't ever turn it off, you let the browser run, you let whatever stuff that's running in the background run for a while, inevitably you're going to run into issues. And then you have to reboot the computer. So an autonomous system like ours also have to go through the same problems of being left on all the time. The drone is almost never off. The base station is never off unless there's a power outage. But even then, there's backup power, battery banks that we can integrate with that can provide that power. So usually the system is never off. It's always on. And we have to leave it outside. Whether it's minus 40 or 125 degrees, the drone is outside in that box. So the box is AC and heated, but still, you get dust, you get insects, you get all kinds of things that if you land a drone in front of you, you fold the arms, you take out the battery, you put it in a backpack, you bring it back in your car, you protect it from weather. It's usually air conditioned or warm. It's never too extreme because you're keeping it at your office or you're keeping it in the back of the car. So you're not exposed to the elements.
I was about to say, you've shown me footage of some of these drones that are constantly running and proven and so on. And it is it's remarkable. And it's not, you look at these brand new drone in the box solutions, they're all shiny and pretty and so on, and great product, but yet it's not like I can even speak to seeing your product perform at events nonstop around the clock, constantly flying, constantly landing, while I watched others take some time to move, like to actually perform. And yours nonstop performed. I was very, very impressed with that.
Yeah, and I can actually show you right here. I mean, look at this. This is our product. I mean, look at this base station. This base station is 6 years old. I mean, it's flew over, I don't know, 12, 13,000 missions. And, the drone itself is 3.5 years old. Of course, the internal's been updated, but the airframe itself works just fine. We update the motors, we update the battery, of course. We also update certain internals when it needs to be updated. But essentially, this airframe and the base station's been out for over 6 years. So we don't put our best foot forward when we talk to customers. This is actually what they see. How many drone companies put their worst maintained system out there? This is absolutely atrocious. I mean, look at all the ugliness that's here. I mean, it's got spider webs, it's got stains all over from not properly maintaining it. And we just leave it this way because that's the way we want it. We want to show customers what a real product look like versus something that's been pampered. We don't have flashing lights outside our box. We don't have a red button or anything. We're not trying to make it look complex. Again, it's the A-10 model. Simplicity is reliability. Why do you need flashing lights? You're not going to be up on the roof. If you got BVLOS, why do you need it? What is it for? What is the purpose? If you got a red button, what is it for? You're not going to be up there. Everything you can do with our app. You can press a button, the door opens. Everything that you can do via our app. And it could be mobile, it could be on your PC, or you could be sitting in an office. So we want to eliminate all that, focus the base station structure on weather resistance and resiliency and ease of maintenance. So this way, sustainment is going to be a big problem later on. For a lot of these customers that's going to be deploy hundreds of systems, you just wait. What's going to happen is they'll say, oh, cool, this thing looks really high tech, very modern. Ours, just aluminum box. That's all it is. If you're walking on the roof, I'll show you what it looks like from the outside. So from the outside, this is what it looks like, just like this. Just a box. It's just a box. Why? Well, what else does it need to be? So our philosophy is truly just that. We don't bother to add the unnecessary bells and whistles. There will not be flashing lights. There will not be fancy buttons. All we're going to do is make the system simple so less can go wrong, resistant to weather, and always ready for a mission. We have different challenges in different places, so it's not perfect.
Quick break to highlight whether you're flying, sharing, or managing your drone program, DroneSense has everything you need. It's hardware agnostic, so it works with a variety of drones, sensors, and other hardware, giving you ultimate flexibility. And with the ability to collaborate across agencies securely, DroneSense helps you scale from one drone to 100 plus, supporting you in everything from routine calls to disaster response. To learn more and get started, check out the link in the description. Well, let's talk about that. I would say, there's something that is really prominent with drone-in-the-box solutions right now, and that is urban environments. And the term urban jungle becomes a thing, right? So, and with unmanned aerial systems in an urban jungle, I'm sure they present unique operational challenges. What has been the most innovative solution that you've seen for addressing these challenges?
I have to say that the biggest challenge is actually networking.
Like connectivity or like speaking between?
Yeah. Connectivity. That's right. And, it really doesn't matter how robust you think your network's going to be. When you add a new components, like when you add a new modem or you get on a new band, there's going to be issues. There's a period where you have to adjust. There's firmware updates by the component makers that could conflict. There's EMI. Some components are more sensitive to EMI, others aren't. And also just, overall coverage. If you're on LTE, like we are in New York, LTE antennas point downwards, mainly for cell phones. People don't fly, like, aircrafts do, but people mostly are on the phone. But in urban jungles like New York or San Francisco or, LA, downtown LA, you do have antennas on top of buildings. So that helps us because the elevation of that signal is going to be higher. But you're going to get pockets of LTE, weakness, or simply it's not there. Just like your cell phone. When you drive sometimes, it just goes out. Why? They can't cover everywhere, especially in urban areas where there's lots of buildings. So it's different providers operate on different bands. So, you will have Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they're kind of on different bands. So you'll have some with better building penetration ability, but others will perhaps saturate you with more antennas for better bandwidth when you do have them. So there's that as well. All those things need to be figured out. But the other challenge is wind tunnels around buildings. Even if you're flying above them, the buildings definitely create turbulence as strong winds tend to blow around them or blow above them. So stability, your ability to really hold altitude or hold position is very important.
It's like almost indoor drone flying in a way. When you get too close to a wall, it sucks right into it. It's got to be quite the challenge.
Well, it will be a mistake if you're that close already, right? So, it's nothing is perfect, but we think that the sensor necessary to urban flying safe will likely to be something that can work under pitch darkness, variety of weather conditions. Like I said, if you have optical avoidance, what happens when your camera gets wet? When it's snowing, what happens when you have snowflakes on your cameras? Can't see. What are you going to do? So relying on visible wavelength to do that is, I think, great when everything is in your favor. When the shadow, are minimized, sun is really bright, no fog, no rain, no snow, it will work wonderfully.
I was going to say, it was like you're making it sound like never the case drone flying, right? Like it would be so optimal to have none of those things, but you are challenged with real life scenarios.
Oh, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, the scenario that we will have is sort of unpredictable. Sometimes we'll be called upon to fly when the weather is bad, wind is very strong. It might be rainy. It might be at night, and it might be, snowing during the winter in certain areas. What do you do? I think having good ground-based detect and avoid system for low-flying aircraft is one. You can't just rely on masking. If you want to rely on masking, then you'll never be able to fly out. I mean, what if the tallest building is only 20 feet? What are you going to do? Shielding or masking is good because it might be able to get you a waiver quickly, but it's bad in that it limits your concept of operation in terms of what you can do. So altitude very often allows you to see a lot more. So we think that the best way to go about this is a combination of ground-based detect and avoidance, and that could be optical, but also a combination of radar as well for moving objects like low-flying aircrafts and potentially other drones, and then having a great UTM. So we need to be able to manage that traffic. And that's not just based on sensors. That needs to be coordinated because sometimes a drone might be on the other side of the building, turning left, and we're actually going straight. Well, here it comes, right? So if we're operating, I mean, it's not there yet. I'm talking about maybe like 3 years from now. We're going to run into these issues, right? So, there needs to be a robust and unified UTM, and that should be owned by independent organization. I understand the whole thing about, it can be private. It can definitely be private, but it should be independent because otherwise other drone companies that are not the owner of that technology could sometimes be deprioritized or perhaps not given as much attention, and then accidents can happen. So that's one. And then, of course, onboard detection, like I said, we're not a fan of obstacle, although we think it's very useful. Ideally, you would have obstacle, but you also have something else like a radar. So we've been working on radar for, a couple years. And, radar for us is quite a solution because one, is proven. We know radar works in all different kinds of weather. And the radars can go out about 120 feet to see a building. When it's raining, pitch dark, you want to use a camera the size that's on the back of your phone to look at 120 feet away and then have that depth perception to be able to fly at 30 miles an hour. That's not going to work. You'll have to slow down significantly 10 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour, or maybe even less, right? If it's raining. So all those things hinder proper response time, which is actually one of the most important parts about DFR. So our philosophy is forget about everything else. Okay, screw it. Don't bother with it. Just do one thing. The market's big enough. If you do just one thing right, you will not only survive, you will thrive. Don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to do, I'm going to do delivery. I'm going to do inspection. I'm going to do all this. My airframe can do everything and it's going to do DFR. Maybe. It's either going to be really expensive or it's not going to do any of them really well. Or both, worst case. So, being a car guy myself, I think if you look at the best sports cars or the best all-terrain vehicles or off-road vehicles, Jeep is one. That's all they do, off-road. You don't see Jeep trying to race in Formula One or like in the GT series, right? In the GT3 series. But you know what? You don't see Ferrari trying to do what Range Rover and Jeep is trying to do, right? But Ferrari is in Formula One. So, and Porsche with their GT3 series that they're really strong on. So focusing on one thing and do it really well has been proven time and time again, not just with cars, but also with aircrafts as well. You're not going to expect the B-2 bomber to be a fighter, right? It's not going to be highly maneuverable, but it's a very stealthy, very stable platform because it has one mission, penetrate enemy airspace.
It's it's an outlier. It's like designed for this one purpose. That's what separates it from everything else, and let it focus on that. I really like this, Jack. Like I can see the direction too with Nightingale and the reliability and so on. We're mentioning a lot of things in this urban jungle, and I'm curious, what about regulations? What about the building, the complexity? How do you approach such complexity to create maybe a DFR program that has scalability?
For that, I want to give credit to the folks at NYPD. They're the ones that know their environment the best. So we had Sergeant Nayrog, who was instrumental in terms of finding us and giving us an opportunity to kind of prove ourselves. We also have Inspector Gulanello, who's been very involved in terms of shaping of the DFR policies and also just the how-to, getting all the technology working together. And we also, of course, have Deputy Commissioner Cass Daltrey, who actually is a driver behind that vision. And of course, the support of the mayor, Mayor Adams. And then, most recently, Captain Eichner and his team, that's, actually, operating the systems, right? I mean, they're the toughest customer to police. Ultimately, they are our customers. Sometimes, we celebrate the wins. Other times, we eat dog food together. The program is unlike anything else, both in scale and also in environment. You can have great programs like the ones at Chula Vista. Very, 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 very early first mover. And you can also have very large, complex programs that are now like New York City, like the ones that we're also talking to in other parts of the country and other parts of the world, which we will not name right now. But, some of them are like national programs. So the size and complexity of those programs are growing. But New York definitely leads the way.
It's not one shoe fits all, right? It's unique to each. The shoe might have reliability, like you're speaking of, right? And concept.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that not one size fits all. I'm beginning to think that if you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere. It's true. The old saying, you can make, if you make it here, you can make it anywhere. If you make it in New York, make it anywhere. Before it didn't mean anything to me.
You need to have that written on the box.
Yeah, because, New York, it's so unique in its density, right? So if you can fly in New York, you can fly in Berlin. You can fly in DTLA, right? You can fly any parts of LA for that fact. Forget it. You can fly in San Diego. You can fly in Seattle. You can fly in Chicago. Although the wind, for us, not as big of a problem, but for airframes that are not optimized for this, yeah, places like Chicago, even San Francisco can be a challenge.
All right, that concludes part one of our conversation with Jack Wu. Join us in part two, where we explore system integrations, the future of drone operations, and Jack's vision for smart cities. Thanks for listening to DroneCast, and we'll see you in part two. And that's a wrap for today's episode of DroneCast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and thought-provoking. As always, we want to hear from you. What do you think of today's topics? Do you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes? Don't forget, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn at DroneCast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, or head over to DroneSense.com/DroneCast to share your thoughts and get more content from the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and sharing it with others who are passionate about the future of drones and public safety. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.